I think this Houston Texans team, even more than the Jets out there, is getting more talk and more love from just kind of the general casual fan, which is so odd and weird to me because you think Aaron Rodgers coming back and everyone's going to flock to the big, the Jets and all that. They'll be like, man, what DeMeco Ryans and CJ Stroud were able to do last year for this Texans team, one of the teams that entered the year with one of the lowest win totals in the NFL, one of the teams that I thought I was just going to be fading in Survivor all year long, ends up making the playoffs. And here they come in this year, and they're not going to sneak up on anybody, at least from a betting market standpoint, because they are getting all the love.
No, they're going to have all the eyeballs on them because they were so under the radar last year. And I was looking at their schedule when I was writing up the guide from last year. They had 16 games in the 1 o'clock Eastern window on Sunday. So, and probably getting like 5% of the country on your local CBS broadcast or Fox or wherever they were. Now you get 4 primetime games. All the lights are on this team now because of what they did last year. And the fact of what they did was have a rookie quarterback who led the league in average passing yards per game and touchdown to interception ratio. The only quarterbacks over the last 50 years to do that besides CJ Stroud were Joe Montana and Tom Brady. Mm-hmm. Now, it's pretty tall cotton. I'm not putting him there quite just yet, but hell of a job considering your offensive line wouldn't help you all year because he got sacked quite a bit because Shaq Mason was the only starter to start all 17 games on that offensive line last year. But they're not rested on their laurels either. Like, they're going for it. Kind of like the Knicks in the NBA with what they're doing. They're going for it. They traded for Joe Mixon because the running game was, I think, 22nd in the league last year. They traded for Stefon Diggs. Stefon Diggs, restructured deal, so he'll be a free agent next year. And then Nico Collins, who our producer Stephanie was like one of the more underrated receivers in the league, and I think she's dead on. There, we were talking about that during the break. He's in a contract year. You could potentially get Tank Dell back from that injury he suffered. He's that little small diminutive guy that gets in space and is so quick, dynamic in the return game as well. So offensively, there's a lot of expectations, and rightfully so. But were they really changed at what Nick Caserio, the GM down there in Houston, did? Signed a ton of talent on defense. Now, we'll see if it works out, and then brought in 5 draft picks were defensive players as well. So Will Anderson, we talk about Stroud, but Will Anderson, who was the pick right behind him, was the defensive rookie of the year. So what do? You get him another pass rusher on the other side. Daniil Hunter comes in from Minnesota after 16.5 sacks. Danico Autry had 11.5 career-high sacks. He comes in from Tennessee. You bring in Al Shahir from Tennessee, who was with DeMeco Ryans when he was the DC in San Francisco. And then you brought in some guys that you're taking chances with, C.J. Henderson and Jeff Okudah, who are former first-round corners. Haven't really lived up to that, but they're basically depth guys because you got Derek Stingley at least managing one of those spots.
It's you look at you kind of look at what Houston did, and I agree with you. They did kind of push their chips in the middle here. And look, rightfully so, you're in a division that you could argue outside of the NFC South, which I think is the weakest. This is like the most ripe for a team to kind of take over, right? Because we haven't been able to, we don't have any idea whether we're going to see anything that resembles NFL quarterback play from Will Levis. This Jags team, we keep getting there and not being able to get over the hump. So, I mean, like, there is definitely something that Houston's getting done here that you could look up and say, wow, Houston's won the division 4 years in a row. So, I don't think that's crazy for us to say that. But yet, as you mentioned, man, on the defensive side of the ball is really what impressed me with what they did in the offseason. Sure, you go out and get Steph Diggs. That's always going to help. He's still he's on the wrong side of 30.
Right.
I mean, he's still a 1, but it's not like he's the elite level 1 really anymore. So yeah, that's all going to help. But it's the defensive side where you really start to look at this and you bring, like you said, Daniil Hunter to go along with, I know Sauce Gardner got all the love there, but Derek Stingley had an amazing season last year. One of the very best corners in all of the NFL last year. And you mentioned you bring in a couple of those linebackers, some other depth type of stuff. And now you look around and you go, oh, if CJ Stroud and them are even close to what they were on offense last year, now this defense might be able to keep teams from just moving up and down the field on them left and right. This actually could be a scary team.
Well, and look, they upgraded that defense too, I think, because they know that they're going to get that first place schedule. Because when you look at that schedule, and that's why they're not, I think, in double digits yet in terms of win total, because look at the quarterbacks. I'm going out of order here, but look at the quarterbacks that they have to face this year. Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Dak, Aaron Rodgers, Tua, Jordan Love, Jared Goff, Lawrence twice, obviously. And then you've got some young guys that were all high first-round draft picks. Richardson twice, Caleb Williams, J.J. McCarthy potentially, if he is starting by that standpoint. They get him week 3, so he might not be starting, as we were talking about in the good news, bad news earlier. But, yeah, this is a tough schedule. And now, you go from the, I know this is cliche, the hunter to the hunted.
Yes.
And you really do. And now everybody's eyeballs are on you, and you're playing 5 division champions, and you're playing 2 other playoff teams. So you had to get more talent on that defense. And I think, with these guys in the scheme, the second year of the scheme that Ryans and company bring in, and then Bobby Slowick on as the offensive coordinator, they run a lot of zone running scheme. So Mixon certainly helps with the running game, I think, on that, and then a healthy offensive line. But yeah, this is the most talented roster in the AFC South. Now, the most talented roster doesn't always win divisions, obviously, but this, to me, I look at what they added, and look, I'm not one of those guys that's like, okay, you're a big player in free agency, because it's always sexier to add rather than subtract, right? And, so not all these guys are going to work out, but if a few of them work out, like if Hunter can still give you good production, and Autry and Al-Shahir, then all these other guys are just depth guys, and you're going to be okay.
Yeah, I look at this schedule, and it's one of those, sometimes I recommend, hey, if you want to play a win total on a team, you probably want to do it. Wait a few games in the season or something. Like, no, the soft part of the schedule for the Texans is early, and you don't want to wait on this if you want to play an over on this team, because they're going to have to win these games. Indy, Chicago, Minnesota, maybe even take that one at home against Jacksonville. You start to look, once you get out to week 9, it is short week on the road at Jets. Then it's the Lions. Then it is Dallas. You get a little, maybe what might be a playable bye week there in Tennessee. But then you're on the road at Jacksonville, Miami, Kansas City, Baltimore, like all down.
Yeah.
You are looking at the very, very meat and bulk of that schedule coming down the stretch here for this Texans team. And so again, like this is one of those teams. If you want to bet an over on the win total, you don't want to wait on this one, because this one's there. A lot of those wins are going to have to come early on in the season, because Wes, even a great season, even a good season for this Texans team, you have to look at this stretch of the schedule and say, I mean, we're going to be lucky to come out of this a game over 500 or 500. I mean, there's just a lot of tough games in a row.
Yeah. So they're gonna have to step up here, and look, they're still in the second year of kind of that culture change within the organization, right? Remember how like toxic this culture seemed, and everybody was so down on this organization after the trade of DeAndre Hopkins, after J.J. Watt leaves, who's the most beloved player, arguably in the franchise's history, and Nick Caserio, I think, has done a good job, changing that and changing that culture. DeMeco Ryans only in his second year. He was the assistant coach of the year, that award 2 years ago with the 49ers when he was the defensive coordinator. So look, it's taking time, but and they exceeded expectations. That's why you're kind of worried. It's like, okay, did they get lucky?
Yeah.
Are they going to regress? But they had to do this, like I was mentioning, with that offensive line that was all kind of banged up, with a rookie quarterback, and man, they found ways. And I felt that Stroud was the best quarterback going into that draft. I didn't think he was going to do what he did last year, but I felt he was maybe the most ready, at least right now. And he certainly showed that.
Plus 105 to win the AFC South for this Houston Texans team. So, I mean, it is a lot of love here, a lot of backing, and we'll talk about the Jags a little bit later. Pretty big gap, plus 275 for the Jags. So we're talking plus 105 to plus 275 for the second shot there in this division. Wes, it is a team where it would not shock me if they won 11, 12 games. Also, I think if a season that just kind of mirrors last year also wouldn't shock me, right? I mean, kind of like a 9-8, 10-7 type season as well. We've seen quarterbacks have really good years and maybe not followed up with as great a year the very next season. So I'm not ready to crown this team quite yet.